Yo, it's good to be back in here. Okay, guys, we have only 35 minutes plus 10 for QA, so I will start quickly. Everyone can become a webflow expert. I will talk about the mindset and a bit about the technical skills that you need if you want to become a professional using webflow. So, we have some numbers in the first slide. I won't bore you with that numbers right at the beginning. The most important information is that webflow is growing. It's growing really quickly. And it's also listening. So it has more than 3.5 million users already. There's a huge list of new features coming up to us every single day almost. And what is really also important, we have more than 250,000 sites, and the majority of traffic goes already through the webflow websites. WordPress is still leading when it comes to the number of the websites, but that's going to change very soon. So this is why you should bother. This is why this presentation might bring you some general value, I hope. But before we jump into the topic, I will tell you a few words about me. Kacper already started. Thanks for that. My name is Marcin Rzymek, and I'm a senior product designer in NetGuru and a webflow developer. I'm also helping NetGuru grow and scale the no-code department. I'm a webflow certified expert and a mentor with more than 1,500 minutes, mentoring young designers and webflow developers on a platform called ADP List. Feel free to jump into my website later on. The new one is in the construction. There's also a handle to my webflow account, LinkedIn, and the website of the NetGuru. We recently revamped that, so be sure to check it out. So, jump into the topic, introduction. I was thinking, how should I generally kickstart this presentation so it brings the most value to you? And I was going through different quotes to generally find something that might make sense for this presentation. And I found something written by Soren Kierkegaard. And it starts like that. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And I was thinking like, yeah, this is also true when it comes to building the websites. So I tweaked this quote a little bit, change life to website and change live to build. So it sounds like this when you want to hear how I would say it. Website can only be understood backwards. And this first part already gives you an understanding that mindset and proper approach is the base. Without the proper mindset, whenever you jump into the webflow, you won't build a quality digital product. But when you already have that good understanding, you cannot build it from the back. You have to start from the beginning. So generally, you go through all the phases that are required to build a website, from the discovery through user experience, visual design, and then jump into the development. So to become a webflow expert, you need to obtain the proper mindset, but you also need a lot of technical skills. And this is all that you need in general. So I can close up after this one. But let me dive a little bit deeper. We have two pillars. And by a reason, I put them in this correct order. So on the left side, we should always start from the mindset. Remember, guys, and I will repeat myself multiple times today, and I cannot emphasize that enough, mindset is the core. Whenever we open Webflow, we are in the development mode. It is not a design, it is about development. What we do is like we build layouts based on the designs that we see mostly in Figma or Sketch or whatever other tool designs we're using before. We add a layer of functionality. We need to think and remember about the browser compatibility. We need to think about the different devices that users will use to see the website that we built. We will often also check the documentation to understand how we can build the specific features. We will build the responsiveness, think about the content that's going to land on the website that we generally develop. We would have to think about the performance, the page load, the time it takes for load specific elements and sections of the site. We need to think about the SEO, so discoverability of that website. And this is the first part, thinking. So before you start developing and clicking Webflow, you need to obtain a proper mindset. And on top of that, we have also the skill set. I've split it between the front-end development and Webflow platform skills, which is obvious. In the nutshell, when it comes to technical skills that you need to become a Webflow expert, you need to know about the main core languages that are generally being used to develop the website, which is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, at least the basics. You can add on top of that some knowledge about jQuery, which is part of JavaScript, and also learn something about the libraries. When it comes to webflow itself and the way how you interact with that platform, you will have to learn how to properly set up the project, how to prepare the favicons, how to set up the fonts so they generally getting displayed properly. You will learn about the components. You will learn about how to build a style get page, which is like huge help for further development process. You will need to learn about where is the navigator, what you can find there, where is the style panel, interaction panel, and so on and so on. So this is a nutshell. Let's jump into the first chapter, which is mindset. You probably know that interface, yeah? This is not webflow. This is the interface of Figma. So what you can see in here is something related to the styles. You can see the frame settings where you can set up the auto layout and paddings and so on. You see also the typography settings. So if somebody inquires you to build a website, to design the website, please don't go to webflow. Yeah, start with Figma. Whenever you have to prepare the user experience, think about user journey, you need to go with the flow with your creativity, use your guts to build that beautiful layouts for the website, for the company. Start in Figma. Don't do that in webflow. Yeah, Figma and other design tools allow you to just think creatively. Don't give you so many constraints. If you want, name the layers. If you want, group the elements. Or if you don't use outer layout, not a big deal generally. Developers might have a problem with developing that website, but not a big deal. Yeah, you can use as many styles as you want. The floor is yours. But what we are doing here, we are jumping into webflow, and this speech is about generally using webflow, so don't be that designing dev. Yeah? Whenever you open webflow, you are in the development environment, so you shouldn't think as a designer. So take off that hat of the designer, start thinking about the development. Yeah? Focus on translating ready design into the development environment. And I have maybe not a proof, but the most common mistakes that people do whenever they design websites in Webflow, yeah? I have 8 points in here. Let me just go briefly through that. Neglecting semantics, yeah? What we see in the design tools is frames, artboards, groups, and that's it. Whatever we see, if we want to prepare the buttons or inputs for the form, we use the regular frames, we style them, all good. Generally, if we want to put such elements on the website, and if we want those to generally work, we need to use the proper semantics. Button is a button, inputs are inputs, you need to know all different types of inputs and so on. So this is a huge, generally very important information for the browser to understand which elements are doing what on the website, right? Sections have the specific tags. Footer is a footer, navigation is navigation. Moving forward into the classes, we have point number 2 and number 3. So those points talk about the most common mistakes when it comes to preparing the styles. And the design tools, we start styling the element, all good. We can save the styles, but we don't have to. In Webflow, I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of beginners are doing is like they just drag and drop an element, start styling. And if you choose the properties and choose the values for those properties without assigning the class, without giving the name to that class, you will end up sooner or later with the classes throughout the whole project that are called div 35 or text block 54 or even more. What else is happening in here? Generally, in a design, there's not a big deal if you won't forecast too much. In the development environment, you have to forecast. You have to think into the future, look into the future, and try to figure out which classes you might stack on top of each other to achieve some specific styling. Yeah? So the less classes you have, the less styles you have, the better it is for you and for your website to perform in the future. Another mistake that Webflow designers are doing is lack of responsiveness and fluidness. Yeah? What we see in the design tools is we operate with pixels. What we have, on the other hand, on the development environments and the tools like webflow, we have relative units. We have REMs, we have EMs, we have VWs, VH, so viewport height and viewport width. Every single element that lands onto our website, we're building the whole website using the box model. So generally, we put elements inside of each other, and the positioning of specific elements depend on their parent. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. Stop using pixels, start thinking about how each of the elements on the website and each section will generally flow and will move depending on the screen size. Then we have a lot of accessibility problems. Yeah? If we won't use the relative units, the fonts might not be scalable. If we don't use the proper semantics on those elements, the assertive technologies and as well as search engines might have problems with understanding that website. Another problem is poor performance. Yeah? Design looks beautiful. Designers take a lot of time to prepare beautiful websites, and so they generally drive the users through them and get them into some specific conversions or give them some information. But when it comes to development, you have to think about what size should those images be, because we have to keep in mind very important aspect, which is page load. Every time when the user goes through the different pages of your website, there is a time that is needed for each page to load. And this is also something that a lot of webflow designers have problem with. They just keep on pushing the elements onto the webflow environment, into the assets panel, without thinking about optimization, proper optimization. Number seven mistake is going too fancy, don't thinking about the functionality. I know the webflow generally encourages us to add beautiful interactions and animations. That's not a problem. The problem is when we bloat our pages and add too many effects without thinking about the functionality, without thinking about the value that it brings to the business. So remember to do that step back. Yeah? And the last mistake, but which is happening very often, especially at the beginner webflow developers or the people who still design webflow, is forgetting about proper setup. Yeah, so how you upload the fonts into webflow, how you add domains, you need to remember about that. And those are just a few most common mistakes. Remember, guys, this is the proper mindset. Become a webflow developer. This should be your goal, not to become webflow designer. And like, this might be a bit misleading, especially for the people who just start with webflow, because whenever you open the workspace, whenever you open the dashboard, what you see is a designer mode, right? Despite using the same module for the development of your project, you need to remember that you are a developer. This is the most important thing. Yeah, say hello to HTML, to the CSS and JavaScript. Forget about designing in webflow, despite using the designer so-called mode. Okay, this is about mindset. Let's jump into the skill set, because there's a lot to cover generally. This is your world. Whenever you open the webflow platform, this is all that you're surrounded by, or generally some of the elements, but this will already give you an idea, yeah? You will start using the different tools that might be connected to webflow, like Zapier, or you can see the logo of CodePen here. A lot of people jump into that to find some specific effects or something that they want to put into the website. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and attach and just a few examples of the frameworks that are pretty common and popular in webflow world. But this is all that you're surrounded with. You know, I have one more concept before we jump into more details about the technical skills required to become a webflow expert. Some time ago I saw online, I think Matthias Peters shared that information on LinkedIn. Somebody prepared a differentiation between implementer and developer. Yeah? What we're trying to become, whenever you want to be good, and you want to be a professional webflow expert, you need to become a developer. But let me say a few words about implementer. There are people who are so-called webflow implementers, and those are people who solely rely on the tool, solely rely on the platform that they're using. And that, there's no like big problem with that. But imagine that you're good in using Webflow as a platform. You go through Webflow University, and suddenly the client is requesting from you some specific features. If you see that the Webflow, you hit some limitations, for example, in Webflow, or if you want to find specific tools and apps that are connected to Webflow that might generally help you build that feature, you will have a problem. Yeah. So implementers are people who generally focus on whatever the platforms are bringing, and whenever they hit the plateau, they have a problem and they need a support. On the other hand, the developer is the person who knows much more. They see the bigger picture, they understand how the logic works, they think about connecting the different things, they know how to go through the documentation, they know the main languages that are used to building the website, like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Always become a developer. Don't become a Webflow implementer. So there are three main groups of skills that you need to obtain whenever you want to become a Webflow professional. I call the skills triada, and I see it this way. There's a front-end development skills that you need to obtain, and I talk about HTML, CSS for building the layouts. I talk about JavaScript and interaction panel for the interactions, and also WCAG for accessibility. This is one part. Second part is integrations. Remember, guys, that whenever you build a website, websites aren't just built, delivered, and forgotten. Yeah? Those are living, maybe not breathing, but living entities that businesses are using for sales, for operations, for marketing. So knowing how to integrate those into the environment that your clients are using for the whole business is the core in here. You need to know how to add an analytics tool. You need to learn how to add or connect your Webflow websites to the CRMs. So the forms might generate, all the submissions from the forms might go somewhere, won't get lost. And the third group is CMS. And this is the biggest superpower of Webflow. You build a website, you probably get most of the content before the launch. But right after the launch, you need to remember that your clients will probably change the content sooner or later. They will upload new CMS items. They will generate some content, maybe blog. Maybe they will change the team members that appear on the website or testimonials. Learning and nailing generally the content management system is one of the most important skill that you need to become a Webflow expert. So, remember, become a Webflow developer, not Webflow implementer. And let's start from those few points. Yeah? Learn the basics of HTML, CSS. I don't ask you to learn the whole syntax of the code, to write it on your own, because in majority of the time you will use the Webflow interface to drag and drop some elements, and you will use the style panel and so on. But there will be cases where you need to infuse some code. Either write it on your own or find it somewhere, adjust it, and put it there. What you need to understand and learn is which code, which language is responsible for which elements. HTML for the content and for the structure. CSS for the styling. Yeah, JavaScript for features, functionality, and interactions. Next, you need to understand the semantics to ensure accessibility and improve SEO. This is something that I touched upon already. Inputs are inputs. Buttons are buttons. The more you dig into the Webflow, the more you understand how it's built, which elements are semantically corrected in there. Like, there was recently, maybe a few months ago, an update whenever you use the native section element in Webflow. It wasn't a section at all generally, that was just a div. But now they changed already the tags, so whenever you use the section, it has a proper tag. But you need to remember about other tags. Navigation, footer, you need to remember that the buttons, generally in Webflow, the buttons aren't buttons. They are just links. So if you want to use the proper semantic structure, the proper semantic naming, you need to understand where to find that information and add specific labels onto that. Then, remember, real responsiveness happens in the development environment. Yeah, you can have very nicely prepared design. Somebody designed it for 1440, for example, for desktop, or 1920. Hopefully, you will get designs for tablet mode as well and the mobile. Who's doing the majority, who's doing the most of the work related to responsiveness is the developers, yeah? That's why we are using the relative units. We are connecting some grouping specific elements so they behave the way how we want it to behave. The better you prepare your websites on a desktop environment, you probably wouldn't have to touch a lot when it comes to smaller breakpoints. Keep performance and optimization in mind. Remember about optimizing the images. Remember about proper formats. Remember about lazy loading, for example. And there are tons of things related to optimization which you have to take care of if you want to build quality webflow websites. And remember that websites are just the documents. Every single page that is a part of the website that you're building is a separate document. It's a separate HTML document. And exactly how, I have one idea which might help you as well, which I generally convey oftentimes during the mentorship, is like, see every single page similar way how you saw all the information that the teachers gave you at school. They used to say like, okay, the point number 1 is this. Then you have A, B, and C inside and some bullet points. You have to see your pages of your project similar way. Look at them as a concept. Yeah, remember, to structure it properly so the users won't get lost and the search engines won't get lost is the proper use of the typography hierarchy. There's only one H1 on the page. That's crucial. Every section, or most of the sections, should have H2 headings because of the way how you convey the information, the way how you structure the whole pages and divide the information on different sections. Then, meta titles, descriptions, open graphs, alt tags. This is all related to SEO, but this is your job to do that. If client won't provide you with enough of the content for the website, just prepare something and don't leave those fields empty, because this is going to hurt your clients and the website in the long run. Huge thing, adding more breakpoints won't make responsiveness easier. Yeah, you have a chance to add additional breakpoints higher than default desktop, but there are oftentimes more problems coming with that rather than help, because the more control you have, the more things you have to think about. It is much better to stay within the main default breakpoints when it comes to desktop, and then just use relative units and think about and try to forecast all the different sizes of the browsers, just to be sure that every single element will be displayed properly instead of adding additional breakpoints. If you need some specific rules, they will probably be attached to specific elements, so it's much easier to just drop an embed here or there and then just write a few lines of custom CSS just to pick a specific resolution and add those style changes on the specific elements. Yeah. Then understand where to add that custom code. Yeah, there are a few places where you can add custom code in Webflow: head tags, body tags, in page settings or in size settings. You need to understand where you want this code to be initiated and how it should behave. Components. This is I would just quickly go through that. Like, I skipped this part because I can talk like 45 minutes about the components. But components will help you maintain consistency and speed up the implementation. So be sure to have enough time to learn as much as you can about the components itself and master the CSS. Yeah, there's no way you can be a professional Webflow developer if you don't master the CSS, especially that what you can find in a style panel in Webflow. This is just a small part of CSS. You cannot find all the properties, you cannot find all the values in there. So start with that, but remember to learn CSS. Okay, frameworks. This is there are many frameworks that help us build Webflow projects. Yeah, I've listed here only 4. The ones that I admire the most, and I don't ask you to learn all of those. But please do. Find some time to go through all the documentations of those different frameworks. See the differences between those, because those people, they already went through most of the challenges that we face on a daily basis, and they, for the reason, prepared a specific set of tools, scripts, to help us build the sites easier. But if you understand like what are the main rules of client first, mast, or Lumos, I don't want to even talk about the knockout because it's huge, you will know what to take from each of the frameworks to build your own and to adjust the way how you build the websites per case, per project, yeah? And remember one thing, frameworks are here to help us, to boost and speed up the process, to make it easier for us, but this is not the base. It's you who are building the websites, yeah? So the more you know, the better you are, the better it is for the project. And find a mentor. This is a huge step when it comes to your career of becoming a Webflow developer. Find the people who you might generally admire and take all the best learnings from. I've listed a few folks in here, starting from Timothy Ricks, which is a huge wizard of Webflow. FinSuite, the whole company, what they are doing is huge. They bring a lot of great stuff, great products for us. Corey Moen, so this is the person who stands behind the MAS framework, and you can find Edgar Allan, Relume, with all the components that they built, with all the tools that they built. Jan Lossert, Matthias Peters, Jonas Arleit, and Pixelgeek. Just find them somewhere online, Twitter, YouTube, and get as much as you can. If you won't have a chance to talk with them, require a real proper mentorship, don't worry about that. There's something called silent mentorship, where you just follow specific people and you just learn from them. But this is the best thing that you can generally do if you want to become a Webflow expert. I think that's it. My time is done. Yeah? I have 8 minutes. So maybe if you have any questions, I can answer that. Or if you need, I can get back and tell you a bit more about specific elements of this presentation.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. So, are there any questions?
I bet I was quicker than I should be, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, we have one question on Slido, though.
Okay, sure.
It's more based on Figma to Webflow flow. And have you ever tried to export your Figma design to Webflow using the plugin?
Using
the
plugin?
official one.
Okay. I've tried, but I'm not a fan of such generally tools because what they do is, okay, let me rephrase that. Such a tools like this plugin from Figma to Webflow, this is a good thing when you already know what you're doing. When you already know how the pages should be structured, or if you are the only person who working on the whole project. So if you're a designer and then a developer, feel free to use it. But to have like the success with that plugin, meaning to move the design from Figma to Webflow, it has to be properly structured in Figma. So if a designer before you, or if you will literally fucked up the design process and the structure in the Figma, you won't get any success out of that. So generally, I would encourage you to start building your website from the scratch, or using one of the frameworks just to learn the basics, just to get used to how the website should be built, and then you can jump into that. I'm not using, honestly, the Webflow plugin, if you ask me.
Okay, understandable. Any questions? Yes, I can see one.
If you add a breakpoint, can you remove it somehow?
Generally, you can use the FinSuite plugin allows you to delete breakpoints, but natively in Webflow, as far as I know, you cannot. But I might be wrong, because I don't remember the last time when I was adding the breakpoints.
You cannot, only FinSuite.
Yeah, so this is the answer.
Hey, so I've got another one. Sorry, it's morning, so sorry for the construction of the question. Can you please elaborate more on potential, let's say, or future of Webflow and e-commerces? Because I know it's like possible to build e-commerce using Webflow, but there are also a lot of constraints. Like back in the days, like a few months ago, like payments in Poland was a huge constraint, let's say, for the business perspective.
Sure.
So yeah.
Generally, as far as I know, Webflow doesn't see, or maybe they don't plan anything related to e-commerce and the integration that you can add. I mean, the specific payment gates in Poland, at least, or more in Europe. But what is great and what will help you exponentially is like what they are cooking right now, because they're currently preparing the integration between Shopify and Webflow. And if you ask me, how will I build next e-commerce project, I will go with that, because it's like I'm not a huge fan of Shopify when it comes to building the website, but generally the whole structure that they have related to how you operate the products in there is already there. And this is how I also encourage you to use Webflow. Just focus on the superpowers that Webflow brings. So it's the CMS, the performance, the way how easy it is to drag and drop elements, to find the specific elements and connect all of that together, how easy it is to edit your websites by the clients in Webflow. Focus on that. Whatever extra functionality you want, I would just find the proper tools that already nail that, and then just connect them with the proper integrations. The same like for the multilingual sites. There's still problem for that in Webflow. There's no native option for that. They're cooking something. I'm not sure how much I can tell you because I saw the roadmap as well. But there's a weak lot, and there are different tools that generally nail that topic already. So it's much easier to split the responsibility about the specific task between different tools. But coming back to your question, I have no idea. But I think they will have to do something soon because they're growing, and there's huge backlog and huge wish lists already created online, and people are voting. So they will have to do something sooner or later. But for now, I don't have an answer for you. Sorry.
OK, I have 2 more questions from Slido. Yeah. So first one is, in the future, what will be the game changer Webflow feature?
I cannot wait for multilingual, for that multi-languages, especially that they are connecting that with localization as well. So it will be a huge thing. And of course, AI. AI is the main topic for everyone right now. I know that Webflow is planning to bring it onto the platform. And I'm super happy that they don't do what other companies are doing. I don't want to hurt Framer, but I'm not a huge fan of the tools that are generating everything for you. So what I saw is I saw some demos. Probably you can find it online as well, where Webflow shows some quick demos or maybe screenshots of how they are trying to implement the AI, which is super cool because they will allow you to, if you struggle with something, they allow you to go quickly and search through the university and documents if you want to find something, or generate the content or generate the code. And those are just, I can't wait to get those into, I can't wait to stop jumping between ChatGPT and other tools to help me write a code, but have that infused in Webflow.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to be patient.
Yeah, of course.
You've mentioned client-first frameworks and other, but have you used Relum library?
Relum library?
Yeah.
I've been using that, not for a commercial project, just for the private ones, a few ones. Journey first of all to test those, to know what is happening around us. But what I'm using is the Relum library for Figma to generate wireframes, which is super cool, super useful. And it also helps designers whenever I share that library for the Figma from Relum. It helps them understand how we think using Webflow. Yeah, I think that's it. I didn't, and generally, I'm also doing a step back from client first, being honest. As much as I love the framework, I think this is the best framework that you can use as a beginner. I'm already using it more often than other frameworks.
Right? As in the name.
Yeah, that's true.
Any more questions from the public? Nope. So I think that's
Thank you very much. Guys, if you have any further questions, just find me on the ADP list. We can always spend 30 minutes or even more and go through whatever specific detail you want to go through. Yeah, that's
highly recommended.
Thank you very much.